Okay, we're in Luke 22 today. Let's rip through the questions real fast and go from there. Okay, Luke 22, 1 is C, 2 is A, 3 is D, 4 is A, 5D, 6B, 7A, 8D, 9C, 10A, 11A, 12C, 13B, 14A, 15D, 16A, 17B, 18D, 19A, 20C, 21B, 22D, and 23D. Any disagreements on that?
Not really like arguing it, but number 6 was kind of confusing in the Bible because what did Jesus tell the apostles to take and fight among themselves?
Oh, did you do C?
Yeah, and so technically I feel like it would be C, both the bread and the cup, because you see, I'll have to find it now. Yeah, but also, like, it was like just one verse before it, he also had the bread. I don't know, I may have just read it in that way, but right before he had the bread.
Yeah, I mean, it says he broke the bread, so I mean, you could say that he divided the bread. And the cup they had to divide amongst themselves as they shared the cup.
Yeah. Yeah, not really like a dispute, just like a...
Sorry, buddy, you're wrong.
Yeah, I wondered if anyone else read it the way I did.
No, that's that.
So they were both divided, but Jesus divided the bread.
Yeah.
Told them to,
Yeah, I guess I said that.
Yeah, I don't technically I don't think looking at it as both is somehow salvifically dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 40 minutes, and there's quite a lot to go through. So let's read through it real fast then. So starting with verse 1, let's do 7 verses each. Say, we want to start us off?
Sure.
22
22.
verse 1, yeah.
Now the feast of unleavened bread drew near, which is called Passover, and the chief priests and the scribes sought how they might kill him, for they feared the people. Then Satan entered Judas, Simon Iscariot, who was numbered among the 12. So he went his way and conferred with the chief priests and captains, how he might betray him to them. And they were glad and agreed to give him money. Then he promised and sought opportunity to betray him and him to them in the absence of a multitude. Then came the day of unleavened bread, when the Passover must be killed.
So Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, "Go and prepare the Passover for us, that we may eat it." They said to him, "Where will you have us prepare it?" He said to them, "Behold, when you have entered the city, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him into the house that he enters, and tell the master of the house, 'The teacher says to you, where is the guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' And he will show you a large upper room furnished. Prepare it there." And they went and found it just as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover. And when the hour came, he reclined at table, and the apostles with him.
Then he said to them, "I have fervently desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I tell you, I will not eat it again until all is fulfilled in the kingdom of God." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he said, "Take this and share it among yourselves. For I tell you, from now on I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes." And he took the bread, gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to them, and said, "This is my body, which is given to you.
For the Son of Man goes as it has been determined, but woe to that man by whom he is betrayed. And they began to question one another, which of them it could be who was going to do this. A dispute also arose among them, as to which of them was to be regarded as the greatest. And he said to them, "The kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and those in authority over them are called benefactors. But not so with you. Rather, let the greatest among you become as the youngest, and the leader as one who serves. For who is the greater, one who reclines at table or one who serves? Is it not the one who reclines at table? But I am among you as the one who serves. You are those who have stayed with me in my trials."
And I assign to you, as my Father assigned to me, a kingdom. No, you're right. That you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you, that he might sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. Peter said to him, "Lord, I am ready to go with you both to prison and to death." Jesus said, "I tell you, Peter, the rooster will not crow this day until you deny 3 times that you know me." And he said to them, "When I sent you out with no money bag or knapsack or sandals, did you lack anything?" They said, "Nothing."
He said to them, but now let the one who has a money bag take it, and likewise a knapsack, and let the one who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one. For I tell you that this scripture must be fulfilled in me. And he was numbered with the transgressors, for what is written about me has its fulfillment. And they said, "Look, Lord, here are 2 swords." And he said to him, "It is enough." And he came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. And when he came to the place, he said to them, "Pray that you may not enter into temptation." And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, and knelt down and prayed, saying, "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done."
And there he and there appeared to him an angel from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. And when he rose from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping for sorrow. And he said to them, "Why are you sleeping? Rise and pray that you may not enter into temptation." While he was still speaking, there came a crowd, and the man called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He drew near to Jesus to kiss him. But Jesus said to him, "Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss?" And when those who were around him saw what would follow, they said, "Lord, shall we strike with the sword?"
And one of them struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his right ear. But Jesus said, "No more of this," and he touched his ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests and officers of the temple and elders who had come out against him, "Have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs? When I was with you day after day in the temple, you did not lay hands on me, but this is your act in the power of darkness." Then they seized him and led him away, bringing him into the high priest's house, and Peter was following at a distance. And when they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat down among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him as he sat in the light and looking closely at him, said, "This man was also with him."
But he denied it, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." A little later, another saw him and said, "You are one of them too." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." After about an hour had passed, another man began to insist, saying, "Certainly this man also is with him, for he is a Galilean too." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are talking about." Immediately, while he was still speaking, the rooster crowed. The Lord turned and looked at Peter, and Peter remembered the word of the Lord and how he had told him, "Before a rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. Now the men who were holding Jesus in custody were mocking him and beating him.
And when they had blindfolded him, they struck him on the face and asked him, saying, "Prophesy, who is it that smote thee?" And many others things blasphemous he spake.
into their council, saying, Art thou the Christ? Tell us. And he said unto them, If I tell you, ye will not believe. And if I say, and if I also ask you, ye will not answer me, nor let me go. Hereafter shall the Son of Man sit on the right hand of the power of God. Then said they all, Art thou then the Son of God? And he said unto them, Ye say that I am. And they said, What need we any other witness? For we ourselves have heard of his own mouth.
Okay. So, in this chapter, we kind of get to see a lot of how Satan works. So what do we learn from this chapter? What does it show Satan's power, authority, limitations?
It does say that he entered into Judas,
Mm-hmm.
and then Judas did what he was doing, so it's one of those things that kind of scares people, like, Satan just take over me and do these things, but you read in John and other places that Judas was already doing things that he shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Taking money for himself, so he left himself open for Satan to enter into.
Yeah. And then who is held responsible for his actions? Yeah. So, yeah, when it says Satan entered Judas, it isn't Satan taking over his body, forcing his limbs to move as he's walking. It's the spirit of Satan that's motivating him. But he's definitely, it doesn't say a demon, a spirit. Satan's taking charge here. He wants to make sure things go his way. And you can see that throughout this. How do we see him interacting with the disciples? So when Jesus says he might sift you like wheat and demanded to have you, the you that's being used is actually a plural. When he switches to I've prayed for you that your faith may not fall or may not fail, that becomes a singular, which is interesting to note. So Satan's working through Judas at this time already, but he's grasping at every chance he can. So how is Satan getting access to the disciples? How is he just doing willy-nilly, doing whatever he wants to do? Or does he have to ask permission?
I was thinking of, at the end of the temptation narrative with Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
chapter 4:13, says, when the devil had ended every temptation, he departed from him until an opportune time.
Yeah.
So he was looking for that moment.
Yeah, he has. So when it says that Satan demanded to have you, that he might sift you like wheat, does that mean that Satan gets to do whatever he wants? Or are there limitations? It reminds me of Job. What happens in Job?
No, Satan definitely is limited.
Mhm.
I mean, if Satan would not be limited, I'd hate to see what it'd be. I mean, would we even exist here?
Yeah.
You know, and so definitely God does have him limited.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, like Kevin said before, Judas was in the wrongest, for who knows how long. And whenever we sin, that opens the door for Satan to come in and try to destroy us.
Mhm.
And so it's up to us in a sense as, like Jesus. Satan came and tempted him. What did Jesus do? He rebuked him. He says, it is written, it is written. We have that same authority. Say, it's written, get behind me, get out.
So, same thing with Job. Was Job? Did Satan have unfettered access to Job?
Yeah, he was on a leash.
He was on a leash. So,
Whatever God said,
Yeah.
you can do this, but you can't do this.
yeah. So that's what this reminds me of here. Satan's demanding, and does God allow us to endure anything beyond what we can endure? No.
The scripture says, he will not, how is it? Not allow the temptations now to be greater than what we can bear.
Yeah. So, should be very encouraging. We'll undergo trials, problems. Satan himself will come, try to disturb us, and God will allow him to cause problems. But just as, how do you build muscle? You build muscle by resting.
I was going to say the same thing, just like with our children, a 4 or 5-year-old, we don't tell them go out there, hey, go out there and stack this hay by hand. That's more than he can do. We start with small stuff,
Yeah.
a couple pounds or whatever, where the child can handle it. The same way with God with us.
Yeah.
He's not going to let something come upon us that we can't handle because of his love for us.
This language is interesting because Jesus is saying he wanted to sift you like wheat.
Yeah.
But that's the same language that John the Baptizer used, right? And back in chapter 3, his winnowing fork, referring to God, his winnowing fork is in his hand to clear his threshing floor, to gather the wheat into his barn, but the chaff he will burn with unquenchable fire.
Yeah. Same thing with the parable of the tares.
Yes.
At the end, everything will be sifted out.
Yeah.
Continual imagery
Yeah.
that gets used.
Yeah. So maybe for different purposes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the devil's looking for the chaff that he could use.
Yeah, yeah. And then I guess a final point on this is when we are confronted with temptation and hardships, is it through our own strength that we overcome these? Yeah. It's through faith in God. And we have that promise in verse 32 where Jesus is praying for Peter for the temptation he's going to endure. And his prayers are always greater than Satan, that's for sure. I do think it's interesting he has not. We know that Judas, and Jesus knows Judas's plans. He's not saying, hey, Judas, I'm going to pray for you on this one too. He's very much looking after his followers, those who love him, those who are called according to his commandments. Okay. So there's the Passover day with the disciples. Everything's prepared beforehand. Christ tells them what to do, just with, as he said, hey, go find this donkey, it'll be here, or the colt, it'll be here. He tells them, go find this guy who's getting water. He'd stand out from the crowd generally. I don't think the guy would be getting water. So like, oh, let's go talk to him. That must be the guy. That must be the guy. So everything is, and that should have been such a comfort to them after everything happens, to look back and see, well, God knew this was going to happen. Jesus must know what's going to happen. So it should have been a comfort to him to look back and say, well, he knew this was going to be here. He knew this was going to be here. Maybe I should trust him because he knew this was going to happen too. So then they enter into the Passover feast, and this is a pivotal moment for Christians, And the Passover is a foreshadowing of what? What was the central animal that was eaten during this? Yeah, lamb. So, and then it goes back to the Passover. What did they do with the blood of the lamb before they left Egypt? Sacrifice. Blood covered the doorframe. So just as the Passover is a foreshadowing of Christ's sacrifice on earth, he then transforms it into another ceremony, for lack of a better word, and gives it to the church in the exact same spirit, but different. So what we have now is we have the Lord's Supper, communion, which is we can look back on Christ's sacrifice in remembrance of him and partake in his body and blood, as opposed to looking forward to the promise of that final sacrifice. And consequently, we don't have to sacrifice animals anymore either. So I had somebody I was talking with about what God did for the church. And I said, well, he was the final sacrifice. They're like, is that it? It's like, what do you mean that's it? It's kind of a big deal. They were trying to read more into it, so we have, before this, the Passover was the looking forward to Christ. Christ is here, turning the Passover into what we now call the Lord's Supper, where we can now look back on what he did for us. And I think that's why the reason why he says, do this in remembrance of me. It's a continual, something we can do continually to keep that in mind and then partake in his body and blood. So in verse 22, or verse 21 to 22, he calls out Judas. He doesn't name him the name, but it says, behold, the hand of him who betrays me is with me on the table. For the Son of Man goes, it has been determined, but woe to that man by whom he has been betrayed. So he's holding Judas accountable for his actions. And it's not, he had to do it because he didn't have any choice. He's holding him accountable for his sin. And I think it's just funny that right on the heels of them trying to figure out who's betraying him, they then start figuring out, well, who's the best out of all? So it could be they're like, okay, well, they know something's going to happen, so who's going to be in charge afterwards? Something like that, which... So what do we see in his response? How is he structuring them? Are they all, what were we saying, Gideon?
The humble is the greatest.
Yeah. So what is he removing any, so this passage gets used sometimes to say, well, we're all equal, nobody has authority. Is he removing any kind of a structure of hierarchy of governance? Or is he setting an example for those who are in charge of others?
It's more about how authority is used.
Yeah.
So the kingdom of God is kind of upside down from the way the world is, or the world's upside down from the kingdom of God.
Yeah. So he gives himself as the example with the washing of feet as to how one is to behave as a leader. Is like you take care of those who are underneath you. You're not greater than them. You have responsibility over them, but that doesn't mean that their needs should not be considered. Like, you're to care for those who you are in charge of.
And it's not only in this example of the washing of the feet and things. Jesus, the Bible says nothing was created without him. He's the creator of
Yep.
everything and king over all, and yet he left that and came. He had nowhere to lay his head, the Bible says.
Mm-hmm.
And slept, ate with the lowliest of all people on the earth.
Yeah.
And it's like, could we go to like San Francisco or a place like that, and I live there with the homeless, live in the tents with them, and just be with them day in and day out? Sometimes we think, well, that's a step down, man. I'm better than this. But that's exactly what Jesus did.
Yeah. If you're to minister someone, you adapt yourself to their customs in ways that are godly. And so just like Christ came to minister us, he took on humanity. I don't think somebody who, not everybody would be called to minister to the homeless, but if you are going to minister to the homeless, pulling up in a 2025 Mercedes-Benz is probably not the best way to go about it. Okay, so Peter's denial, or foretells Peter's denial. I think we can all love Peter's response of, no, I'm not abandoning you. I'm with you till the end. Prison and death. Which, what happened to him at the end? He fulfilled his promise. He messed up shortly after this, but he went to prison and then he went to the death for Christ. So Jesus tells him the rooster will not crow until you deny me 3 times. And again, you can compare Judas's betrayal of Christ, which is held to be a much worse sin than what Peter did, by Christ's own words. But their response to realizing their guilt and their sin is what we need to look at. Judas killed himself out of despair. Peter humbled himself to Christ, repented, and was forgiven. Okay, so 35 to 38. He's painting a very different picture of them. He's reminding of when he sent them out, the first go around to go out on their own. What did he tell them to do there? Did he tell them to prepare, save up a bunch of money, chart out their budget, plan their route exactly, where they're going to stay, or what? How did he send them out? With nothing. Said, I'm going to take care of your needs. You go out, follow these instructions, and the rest is up to me. Now he's letting them know things are going to be a little different. So his words of warning are now: if you have a money bag, take it, pack some stuff. You're going to have hardships. You're going to be persecuted. What does he say if you don't have a sword? What do you do? Yeah, you're going to have problems. It's not going to be easy. Now, I do think it's interesting with how many swords do they have between all of them? It's good enough. Like we're to rely on God. We're also not to be unprepared. So as in today, if you using this, and you can see an example for the mission of Paul, it wasn't, all right, I'm going to go here. I'm just going to see how it happens. It's prepare. Don't be a fool. Trust in God always, but prepare for what's going to happen.
Yeah, and Paul like even he had to listen to the Spirit as he went. He wanted to head further north, and the Spirit of Jesus kept saying no, and he ended up going a different
Yeah.
direction instead. So but he made his plans, and then he was ready to continue to listen.
Yeah.
So
Yep. He had means to provide for himself. He made tents in his missions as he went. I know in high school, when I was in high school, I definitely heard a lot of, the Spirit's calling you, you just go. He'll take care of every single thing. Like, well, it's kind of, you need money to do this. Contrasting this with, it's interesting. A lot of people will just focus on the first initial sending and then not this. One, Jesus was with them there at that time, taking care of all their needs. And here he's preparing them for the future where things are a little different. Still relying on him for their needs, but God gives us reason and wisdom. And when we view it with Scripture, we find out a lot about how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to live. Okay. So it comes to the Mount Olives. And this is kind of echoing previously when he's telling them that Satan wants to sift them. What does he tell the disciples who are with him? Yeah. Pray that you may not what? Yeah. So he knows the trials that they're going to face. And we can look at that as if we're going to enter into a trial, pray without ceasing, right? And just as he commands them to pray, he goes and does the same thing. So, and in his prayers, does he argue or does he submit?
I mean, he says what he wants, but he's ready for God's will to be done.
Yeah. Everything is whatever the Father wants. It'd be terrible what he's going to go through. But if that's what the Father wants, that's what he's going to go through, willingly. And God, out of love, God the Father sends an angel to him to strengthen him. And despite an angel strengthening him, does it remove his duress? He's still in an agony, and he prays all the more earnestly. And when he rises from the prayer, he comes to the disciples, and he found them sleeping for sorrow. So it's not like they just got tired, but they know something's wrong, and they are incredibly stressed out and worried and concerned, and it's exhausting. So that actually jumped out to me when I was reading through this. I'd never picked up on that. So that stood out to me. I was like, oh, okay, it's not like they just don't care. It's like they're actually beyond concerned. They work themselves up into just actually sheer exhaustion over their concern for Christ. So Jesus comes. And betrays him with a gesture of love and friendship. I love how Peter, as the others are saying, should we strike with the sword? Peter just goes for it. And we say, hey, should we? And Peter's sword is already out. So, but even as they're coming to take him, Christ's love still shines, and he heals the ear of the servant.
Now, I heard something, I wish I could recall what it was said, but in the sermon to the high priest of what Peter did, wasn't that, if I remember right, that would have been a death sentence on Peter.
Oh, I'm sure it would have been, yeah. I've heard that. I didn't research it when I was going through this, but I have heard that. I don't know how accurate it is, but.
But Jesus healed it, and there was no trace of it. They couldn't prove it. So like,
Yeah.
If the servant would have said, hey, he chopped my ear off, and the judge was like, where, what? Well, you got your ear off. There's no trace of it. Jesus completely erased that.
Early church writings do say that servant became a leader in the church as well. Yeah, it's like, okay, I like this guy. I'm going to find out more. So it's cool. That's a very cool part of it. So Peter cuts his ear off. Jesus heals him, and he points out to them, what does he say about their actions? And in his writing, in his words, who does he paint them a picture of being a servant of?
What was the question again?
So what is he? When he essentially, what is he accusing them of? And who is he saying is their true father, their true master?
Yeah, he's saying they're doing this in secret, in the dark.
Cowards.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
you've been out in front of everybody all day long. Now will you come at nighttime?
Yeah. And then this is your hour in the power of darkness, which echoes what he's told the Pharisees, your father the devil, many times. So they seize him, bring him to the high priest's house. Peter's following along at a distance. I'd imagine he probably made himself scarce after cutting the guy's ear off. So he's
What if you still pack it at this point?
yeah, threw it into a river. No weapon, can't convict. And what Jesus prophesied comes to pass. So he's accused 3 times of being with Christ, of a follower of Christ, and he denies it. And his response is he went out and wept bitterly after the rooster crows, and he remembers Christ's words. So, but again, contrasting with what Judas did. Judas despaired, killed himself. Peter wept out of sorrow and turned to Christ. So the servants of the high priest who are holding Jesus in custody are mocking him, beating him. They know he's a prophet. And they're jeering at him. Oh, tell us who struck you. He's blindfolded. And they said many other things against him, blaspheming him. And as he comes before the council, what words is he really saying in his defense? And what is he giving them anything to hang him on?
It's almost like you've already made your decision.
Yeah.
Whatever I say is not going to matter.
Yeah. It's like anything he gives them. They're essentially, it's just like the people who are mocking him. They're in the same, they're saying, who is it that struck you? Give me a sign, essentially. They don't care. And just here, they're already going to try to kill him. And they're out to figure out, make that easier. And so Jesus just tells them, if I tell you, you won't believe me. And if I ask you, you'll not answer. So he just flips the questions back very circumspectly. And when they finally ask him, so you're the Son of God then? He said, you say I am. So just, here, you said it. I'm not going to, sure, we'll go with what you say. And that's all they needed. Just for him to not argue with them on a statement. Yeah. Any final thoughts, questions, anything like that?
I've often thought about the way Luke, or the way Peter is following. He's like, I want to be with him, but I'm fearful
Yeah.
at the same time,
Yeah.